Hey there, welcome to our video on how to buy a house in 2023 and particularly in Seattle, Washington. This is going to be a complete beginner's guide. Before we begin this video, please be sure to click that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up as it helps our channel grow immensely over here at Modernism. Hello, my name is Bruce Bradbury with Keller Williams and with the Modernism real estate team. Not only was I a transplant citizen of myself to Seattle a few years ago, originally from Oregon, but throughout my real estate career, I have found Seattle to be particularly a place that people move into all of the time because of our prominent and leading industries. I mean, think about it. You got tech, healthcare, government, consumer goods, a lot of new home buyers moving here all of the time because of their jobs. However, if you aren't moving here for a new job, whatever the reason in the world may be, welcome to Seattle, and this video is going to be for you. So stick around until the end of the video, because this is going to be action-packed. Yes, that's right. I mean full of action-packed steps that you'll need to know about in preparing for buying a house in 2023. And we're going to get right into it. This video is going to be geared toward the first-time home buyer, someone fresh to the scene. Or, alternatively, if you've bought a house before and it's been, say, 20 years and you're in need for a refresher, I think there will also be valuable info for you here as well. So, we're going to cover the basics of how to buy a house in 5 simple milestones, and then we're going to get granular with everything, go under the hood. And there's a lot that can be found under the category of granular. There is quite a bit of nuance in things that I recommend should happen. I always look at myself not only as a real estate agent, but a professional plate taker offer. I have friends from all over the country, and I'm always the first one they call when they start looking to buy for the first time. What do I do? What should I look for? What do I need to know? I explain all of this to them, but with an asterisk. You need to know all of this, but if you have a really good agent that goes above and beyond, then they should really be the ones taking everything off of your plate and guiding you from point A to point Z. So the moral of the story is don't just have a buyer's agent who's going to talk minimally to you throughout the contract phase. No, the contract phase is only one part of the whole process. So why wouldn't you want someone by your side from the very beginning, helping you through each step? And that's what this video is really about in essence. Okay, so milestone number 1, identifying your budget and your lifestyle criteria. And this is important because it'll help you narrow down your search and ensure that you find a property that fits your needs and financial situation. So this is before you even speak to a lender or you even find a house that you want. Maybe you're going online, you're researching at night, you're going on Zillow, you're doing a little mortgage calculator on Google, checking in approximately, what can I get based on my income, based on the job that I have? Think, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What kind of life would you like to lead? How many bedrooms do you want? Would you like a yard? Would you like a 1-car, 2-car garage? Are you buying the home for yourself, or are there others involved? Who's going to live in the home, and what layout is going to best fit your tastes? I mean, there's a lot of questions. Do you have any dreams? For instance, I'll tell you one of my dreams. My fiance and I were absolutely in love with library built-ins. So our one-day dream home is to have a huge library room just filled with books. That's one day, our dream, down the pipeline. So do you have any dream ideas? Do those ideas fit your right now home, or are they for another home in the future? I want to mention there's a statistic by NAR, the National Association of Realtors, that shows that the average time someone lives in their home is about 7 years. So when you're signing up for a 30-year mortgage, note that not many people actually stay in that same home for that long. So your right now home may not include all the details of your dream home, but you may decide to buy anyway to begin building equity in a long-term asset that you can then use to fund your next home down the line. All about market exposure if you're taking it, if you're thinking about home ownership from that angle. So now that you have a basic idea and you've decided the time is right to buy a home, it'll be a great next step to make contact with a reputable real estate agent that will represent you on the purchase. And those people are called real estate buyer's agents, and they'll guide you through the whole process. Since the financial amount of the transaction is so large, buying a home, there are so many moving parts and contracts involved to protect all of the parties. So if you're not familiar with the term buyer's agent, here it is, and here's what they do. There are real estate agents, and any agent can either represent the buyer, the seller, or both on a transaction. So translation, buyer's agent, listing agent, and dual agent. Now, any agent can serve in any capacity. The gist is, once you sign on that dotted line with them, they're legally and ethically bound to be your fiduciary representative. And that just means your needs above their own. So when I sign with my clients, I'm representing them as their fiduciary for either their listing or them as a buyer. Now, this may also be where a lender gets involved. You can find a lender, or we can refer you a few great options. And this brings us to milestone number 2, getting pre-approved for a mortgage. To determine your budget, start by looking at your current income and expenses. Consider things like your mortgage payment, your property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs. You'll want to find a balance between what you can afford and what you're comfortable spending. It's also a good idea to get pre-approved for a mortgage, and that is actually recommended. I recommend that you get pre-approved. And let's talk a little bit about who you're getting a mortgage from and differences you can consider. So we'll talk about the difference between a mortgage broker and a mortgage banker. So say you walk into your U.S. bank, you talk to them about purchasing a home. You're talking to a mortgage banker there, someone that just works for a U.S. bank and is going to get you a loan for and from U.S. bank for your mortgage. A mortgage broker, for instance, is someone like at a mortgage company in your city. You walk in and they have a whole portfolio of banks and lenders that they actually work with. So broker is someone that connects you to a ton more options than just a mortgage banker would. And now I want to talk about the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qual. Between you and me, a buyer does not have to be pre-approved to put an offer on a home. But this offer may appear as somewhat risky to a seller, as it wouldn't appear to be backed by much. So if there were a competitive offer situation on the home, part of what the seller would be doing is choosing the best and the least risky offer. So as a rule of thumb, this pre-approval process will save everybody from headaches and time, as some pre-approvals can even come fully underwritten, meaning that the lender has basically said that, hey, you're ready to get going originating this loan as soon as we sign the contract for the purchase and sale agreement. So even though getting a pre-approval isn't technically like a law or a regulation or anything like that, that you can purchase a house without a pre-approval, I really recommend it because it really just makes the deal a lot more certain for everybody involved. And if you're pre-approved, not only do you specifically know your budget, but you can make a confident offer to a home seller. So let's move on to milestone number 3, finding the right property. Okay, so you've identified your budget and lifestyle criteria, and now it's time to start looking for your home, looking at homes on the market. This is a really fun part of the process. All homes, and I need to tell you this, all homes that are listed for sale, they're put on a regional database called the Multiple Listing Service, the MLS. In Seattle and Washington, our largest MLS provider is the Northwest MLS. Back in the day, real estate agents were the only ones with the keys to the database, basically. They're the only ones that could sign in or have access to the big old real estate phone book, listing book that they had back in the days before the internet. But today, you can basically find all homes that are listed on the MLS online, which is really convenient for a buyer. Technically, and I'll just go into this a little bit, technically what's going on here is that websites like Zillow or Redfin, they have contracts with the MLS offices to scrape listing data and put it on their own sites. But, I don't want to get too far into the tech talk. It's a real estate presentation that we're doing here today. So we'll skip the talking about IDX feeds today. But being as it may, don't forget that your real estate agent is still a valuable resource in finding the right property. There will be another person looking for you, only this time I'm looking out the door instead of looking out the window. And another thing to think of, you may say, well, I could just find the house on Zillow on my own. I don't need a real estate agent. Well, there are a lot of key things that we think about as agents pertaining to your specific situation that may not be easily accessible to find on Zillow. Say, for instance, you are an FHA buyer, and that's just a loan type that you can purchase with. Now, the FHA has certain guidelines for properties. Now, if you're looking at a property on Zillow and you think it's a good fit, well, only you didn't see that it's actually not, we've already gone through the checks with the property and it's actually not available for an FHA loan. That's just one example of something that I'm looking out for my clients. Just knowing and having the insight of, oh, this property will work, this property won't, that kind of stuff. So a real estate agent helps you interpret what you're looking at and gives you another set of eyes to look on the market for you. But seriously, through this process, I implore you to look at real estate websites, local listings, and even social media to find your home. You can also drive around neighborhoods that interest you and look for sale signs physically. When you find a property that you're interested in, make sure to take the time to really evaluate it. That's my advice. Consider the location, the condition of the home, any potential upgrades or renovations that may be needed. You may also decide that you want to get a home inspection to ensure that there are no hidden issues with the property. How it almost always goes down with our buyers and my buyers is that we look for homes online, we communicate back and forth about potential options, maybe I speak to the listing agent early on, and then I set up tours so that we can actually get in the house and feel it in person, actually feel the floor plan and the layout around us, see what's going on. This is a really fun part. And we're talking about all of this minutiae information in this video, but please don't forget to have fun during this time because buying a home, it's a really exciting process. So just enjoy your search, keep an open mind, and have fun. So with a little bit of effort, you're sure to find the perfect property. And that brings us to milestone number 4, making an offer. Now, I don't actually consider my main job to be finding properties for you. Of course, that is part of it. But the biggest job of all is protecting you in the transaction. The real work comes once we are in contract, once you are in contract to buy your home. And how this happens is that you make an offer, I write up the contract for you, and the seller does one of 3 things. The seller either accepts your offer, comes back to you with a counter offer, or rejects your offer entirely. Okay, but let's talk about a little bit what makes up an offer. Terms, price, closing date, conditions, contingencies of the offer, financing, and earnest money amount are to name a few. And let me describe a few key terms for you. Closing date, the date on which a transaction is scheduled to be finalized and the property is transferred to the buyer. This must align with the time that it must take for your lender to finalize on the loan, and the best practice is to communicate with the seller on what's a good date that works for them. What's a good date that works for you as the buyer, and kind of balancing that out, making it so that everyone is comfortable with the closing date. Secondly, financing, we'll talk about the type of mortgage that the buyer will use to purchase the property, and these may differ. They may include a conventional loan, an FHA, a VA loan, a USDA loan. There are lots of different mortgage loan products out there, a lot of nuance. For instance, I'm a young guy. A lot of my friends are still in university, right? One nuance that only a lender will tell you, or you're going to learn about in this video right now, is that if you say go get a 4-year degree in communications, and then right out of school, within a year or so of getting out of school, you get a nice cozy job for $65,000 a year working, at a communications firm or finding some kind of job in your field. Well, in day 1 of starting that job, actually day 1 of getting that offer letter, you now qualify for a mortgage for $65,000. Now, traditionally, you have to have 2 years working experience and 2 years of tax returns in able to get a mortgage. However, lenders often, and it's up to their discretion, lenders often will count that 4-year degree that's in that field as your work experience. So on day 1 of getting a new job right out of college, you could afford a mortgage, which is really cool. And we'll talk about now contingencies. Contingencies are things that must be met before the contract is fully executed. For example, a contingency might be that the buyer obtains financing or that the property passes a home inspection, escrow. a neutral third party that holds on to the funds and documents related to the transaction till all of the contract terms have been met. And very importantly, earnest money. You see, earnest money is a sum of money that you put down to demonstrate your seriousness about buying the home. It's also called a good faith deposit that a buyer makes when they submit an offer to purchase a property. It's typically a small percentage of the purchase price, 1 to 3% typically, and it is completely up to you what you feel is reasonable. The earnest money is held in escrow and is applied towards the purchase price of the home at closing. So if you put $50,000 earnest money, that $50,000 is going to just be applied to everything at closing for you. Now, the main reason for earnest money, if the buyer decides not to go through with the purchase and wrongfully exits the agreement, the purchase and sale agreement, the seller may be able to keep the earnest money as collateral for taking the property off the market. After all, combine the opportunity cost of missing other buyers while you were holding the house in contract, perhaps with marketing dollars spent, and owners' carrying costs such as their mortgages. The seller could be hurt pretty bad financially for you backing out of the transaction wrongfully. However, if the seller backs out of the deal, they may be required to, not get the earnest money. The earnest money will go back to you. And finally, if the buyer decides not to go through with the purchase through one of the contingencies that I mentioned earlier, the buyer also will have their earnest money returned to them, such as if the home doesn't appraise or if it doesn't inspect to your liking, you're able to rightfully back out of the transaction and keep your earnest money. Earnest money is an important part of the home buying process, I would say, and helps to protect both the buyer and the seller during the transaction. And that money is held by the neutral third party, which is the escrow, so that there's no disputes or anything. It's really clean. The escrow doesn't have any part, they're impartial party. They don't have any sort of leaning side, so it makes it really clean. Okay, so now that we have the basics of an offer, let's dive a little bit deeper into it already. So let's just say we found the perfect home and we're getting ready to pen the offer. Based on what we find in the searching phase, you might decide that it would be best to order a home inspection to uncover all areas of the home. So we'll include that term in the contract. Or you want a survey to uncover the exact boundaries of the property line. Or a feasibility study if you have plans to build on the land. These are all terms of the offer that we can add to give you contingencies for purchase, meaning we write up the offer in a way where your satisfaction of those checks are necessary to proceed with purchase. You want to make sure that it inspects well. You want to make sure that it's feasible for you to build that detached ADU, for instance. Finally, we're here at milestone number 5, closing the deal. My favorite part. Once the offer on a property has been accepted, the next steps in the real estate transaction process are designed to move the sale towards closing. And these steps actually look similar to a Gantt chart if you've ever seen one. The chart with the overlapping bars. Really visualize that not everything happens from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, but that some things are going on concurrently to move everything towards close. So timelines that are stacked on top of one another is basically what I'm trying to say. And don't worry, because it could seem super confusing, but your real estate agent is going to be managing all of this and communicating effectively with you and everyone involved. So you can enjoy the process. All you have to worry about is picking out furniture, picking out color swatches. So an analogy that I really like to use and I really like to talk about is think of a wedding planner. So with a wedding planner, you're traditionally not going to be planning your whole wedding. You're going to be, having some requests. Oh, I want these kind of flowers. I want the flowers here. I want the table set up like this. And your wedding manager, your wedding planner, is going to be actually, managing that process and making sure that the flowers get delivered. Make sure that, the cake is picked up and so on and so forth. They're managing the whole process. So you're dictating to the wedding planner what you want, and the wedding planner is executing all of those things so that you don't have to worry on your wedding day about any of this stuff. All of the worry is taken away because you're offloading that to somebody else. That's what I like to think. A good analogy that I use for basically, what is my job really as a real estate agent? It's really to take everything off my clients' plates do it all for them so they can just have fun. A high-level overview of what you can expect to happen during this time. You start with escrow. You deposit your earnest money within 3 days of signing that purchase and sale agreement. Financing. Your lender is working on bringing all of that stuff, all of that documentation from the pre-approval stage to the final approval stage. The home inspection stage. A professional comes out to ensure that there are no major issues with the property. The buyer is typically responsible for paying for the home inspection. If the inspection reveals problems, the buyer may choose to renegotiate the purchase price or request that the seller make repairs before closing. Financing. To mention one more thing, if the buyer is obtaining a mortgage, they will need to complete the financing process. This typically involves submitting financial documentation to the lender and undergoing a final credit check, just to make sure that your financial condition didn't change from the pre-approval to the final approval stages. Most of this work, as I said, can be completed in the pre-approval process. Lenders that I work with, that I vet, that are very responsible for my clients' success, even do fully underwritten pre-approvals. So they go above and beyond and essentially guarantee that, okay, we've already checked out your credit. We've already checked out your tax returns, your bank statements, and so on and so forth. The appraisal. The lender will also need to appraise the property to ensure that it's worth the purchase price. They won't just lend on anything. They actually want to send, someone out there to the property to perform an appraisal. If you're buying at $500,000, they want to make sure that the home is actually worth $500,000. Okay, title search. Title search is conducted to verify that the seller is in fact the legal owner of the property and that there are no liens or other claims against the title. You're going to be having a clear title transferred to you so that there are no problems or what we call encumbrances on the title, so that your home you're buying is free and clear, nothing is attached. It's a clean-cut deal. Title insurance. Title insurance protects the buyer and lender from any potential issues with the title. In Washington, the seller is typically responsible for paying for title insurance, which is just one thing to note. And essentially, it's just insurance that in the transaction, the checks were actually done correctly and that a free and marketable title was actually transferred to you as the buyer. It's just a little insurance there. Closing disclosures. So before closing, the buyer will actually receive a closing disclosure that outlines the final terms of the loan, the costs, the breakdown, and those costs that are associated with purchasing the property. It's important to review this document carefully just to ensure that all the terms are as expected in this. In Washington, the buyer typically pays lending fees. Of course, those terms can be negotiated in the offer as well. Paying for anything can be negotiated, basically, in the transaction. You could say as the buyer, seller, I want you to pay my fees for the lending. It just depends on the market environment that you're in. And your real estate agent will coach you and let you know what kind of market we're in. Are we in a buyer's market? Are we in a seller's market? How's competition? All of that is also going into making up what your offer is actually going to look like. So closing. Let's talk about closing. The closing is the final step in the real estate transaction process. So congrats. You're finally here. After this whole video, you're finally here to the close, what you came here to learn about. During the closing, the buyer is going to pay all the remaining balance of the purchase price. The lender is going to pay all of the remaining balance of what they need to pay. And any closing costs are also getting paid. And the seller is actually transferring ownership of the property to the buyer. And this is the time when I actually get a call from title. And they call me, they say, Bruce, title has been transferred. The buyer is now the official owner of the property. And I get to tell my buyers, you guys now officially own the property. And we go through, we do a final walkthrough of the home. I hand them the keys. We take a little picture for Instagram in front of the house. And it's a done deal. They are now the legal owners of the property after all of that hard work. Okay, so the real estate transaction process can be complex and can vary depending on the specific details of the sale. Maybe you're buying a single-family home in the city, or a ranch home on a septic and well. or a condo. The possibilities are endless on what kind of real estate you're buying. Okay, thank you for watching. I really wanted to do high-level 5 milestones of purchasing a home, and also just go into the minutia, the granular details of each, some that I can think of most notably. There are a lot of things, and as I said in my story earlier that I tell my friends time and time again whenever they ask me about real estate, this stuff is all good to know, but you have a real estate agent, and that's what you're hiring them for, to know all of this and know the legal and know the contracts and everything that goes into the sale so that everyone is protected and the transaction is safe and you're getting your money's worth. So I hope that you found this video helpful as you navigate the process of buying a home. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click the subscribe button and also give us a thumbs up over here at Modernism, and hit that notification bell because we're posting many videos a week. We're also posting a Monday podcast episode every week, about an hour long. We're going to be just talking about, casual conversations about real estate, especially in Seattle, Washington. The videos on our channel, we all focus on, everything about moving and living and breathing Seattle, Washington. So if you have any questions or you'd like more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by clicking the link down in our description. We're here to help, and if you watched all the way to the end here, please leave a comment telling us what you liked best about the video, what you learned, and what city you're in. Are you moving to Seattle? Hope to see you soon. I'd love to hear from you. So, thanks again for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.